Christmas morning was supposed to be the one day of the year when nobody in my family had a reason to lie to each other. By midnight, I had transferred $120,000 from my mother's account, ignored nearly a dozen calls from her, lied about where I was, and sat across from my boyfriend eating a Christmas pastry while pretending my entire life hadn't just changed. I know how that sounds. If I were reading this on Reddit, I'd probably be typing YTA before I got halfway through the first paragraph. I stole my mother's credit card. I made a payment for $120,000. I didn't ask permission, and when her bank immediately flagged the transaction, I didn't call her back. I let her phone calls pile up while I sat there trying to convince myself that what I'd done wasn't completely insane. The worst part is that, even now, I don't know if I regret it. It was around 9:30 on Christmas morning when I walked into my mother's kitchen. The house smelled like cinnamon, roasted vegetables, and the ham she'd been preparing since before sunrise. Christmas music was playing softly from the little speaker on the counter, and there were mixing bowls everywhere. My mother had one of those ridiculous red Christmas aprons on that she'd owned for at least 10 years. She was standing over the stove, tasting something from a wooden spoon. "Can you grab the butter from the fridge?" she asked without looking at me. "Yeah?" I opened the refrigerator. My hands were already shaking, not because I was cold, because I knew what I was about to do. The credit card was sitting in the side pocket of her purse on the chair near the kitchen doorway. I'd noticed it earlier. I don't even know why I noticed it. Maybe some part of me had already made the decision before I consciously admitted it. I looked back at my mother. She was humming along with the music, completely unaware. For a second, I almost stopped. Then she said, "And don't forget we're eating at 2. Your sister is bringing dessert." I know. I walked out of the kitchen. I took the card. I wish I could say there was some dramatic moment where I stared at it and thought about all the consequences. There wasn't. I just stood in the hallway with the card in my hand and thought, if I don't do this now, it's over. I went upstairs. I closed my bedroom door. I sat on the edge of my bed with my laptop open. The payment page was already saved. I had entered everything the night before. All I had to do was submit it. $120,000. My finger hovered over the button. I could hear my mother's footsteps downstairs. Then her voice. "Sweetheart." I didn't answer. A few seconds later, she called again. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." I called back. My voice sounded completely normal. That scared me more than anything. I looked at the screen. Then I clicked. The payment processed. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the confirmation appeared. I stared at it. $120,000. Paid. My stomach dropped. I closed the laptop. I sat completely still. "Okay," I whispered. I don't know who I was talking to. Maybe myself. Maybe God. Maybe the version of me who still had a chance to undo everything. "Okay, I'll explain." That was what I kept telling myself. "I'll explain everything later." My phone buzzed. I looked down. It was my mother's bank. Fraud alert. I felt every muscle in my body tighten. Another notification appeared. Then another. My mother's phone was calling. I stared at her name. Mom. The phone stopped. I didn't answer. A few seconds later, it rang again. I watched it vibrate against my bed. I still didn't answer. The second call ended. Then the third started. I finally picked up the phone and held it in my hand without answering. The fourth call came. Then the fifth. I turned the phone face down. I knew exactly what she was going to ask. "Did you make this payment?" And I didn't know what I would say. The sixth call came. Then the seventh. By the time the 10th missed call appeared, I was sitting on the floor beside my bed with my knees pulled against my chest. I had never ignored my mother like that in my entire life. Not when I was a kid. Not when I was angry. Not even during the worst fights we'd ever had. But that morning, answering her felt impossible. Eventually the phone rang again. I stared at the screen. This time, I answered. "Hello?" There was silence. Then, my mother's voice. Calm. Far too calm. "Where are you?" My heart started pounding. I swallowed. "I'm at a friend's Christmas party." There was another pause. "Okay." I waited for her to yell. She didn't. Don't stay out too late, she said. I closed my eyes. Okay. Love you. My throat tightened. Love you too. She hung up. I stared at the phone. That was it. No accusation, no questions, nothing. And somehow that frightened me more than if she'd screamed. About 20 minutes later, my boyfriend picked me up. I didn't tell him what had happened, not then. He pulled up outside in his old SUV, lowered the passenger window, and smiled. Get in, Christmas criminal. I forced a laugh. Shut up. Where are we going? I don't care. He looked at me for a second. You okay? Yeah. It was the second lie I'd told that morning. He drove us toward downtown. Everything outside looked absurdly normal. Families were walking along the sidewalks carrying gift bags. Kids were riding scooters. People were taking pictures in front of decorated storefronts. There were Christmas lights wrapped around almost every tree. It made me angry. I wanted the entire world to look different. I had just moved $120,000. My mother had called me 10 times, and somehow there were still people standing in line for coffee, like it was any other Sunday. My boyfriend eventually pulled into a little bakery we liked. The place was packed. Christmas music played over the speakers, and the windows were fogged from the heat inside. Hot chocolate? He asked. Sure. Pastry? Sure. You want the chocolate one? Whatever. He smiled. You're very enthusiastic today. I tried to smile back. We found a small table near the window. He brought over 2 hot chocolates, pastries, and later some ice cream, because apparently he had decided we needed to eat enough sugar to survive the apocalypse. For a few minutes, it almost worked. The warmth, the food, the ridiculous Christmas decorations, the way he kept making stupid comments about the enormous gingerbread man near the register. I laughed once. Actually laughed. Then my phone buzzed. I didn't look at it. You're checking that every 30 seconds, he said. I'm not. You literally just did. I pushed the phone deeper into my coat pocket. It's nothing. He studied me. You sure? Yeah. He didn't believe me. But he didn't push. That was one of the things I loved about him. He knew when to leave something alone. I took a bite of pastry, and then the bakery door opened. I didn't notice her immediately. My sister did. She was standing just inside the entrance, wearing a green coat and holding her phone in one hand. She'd obviously come in to pick up the family's Christmas cake. She was looking toward the display counter. Then she looked toward the tables. Then she saw me. Her eyes went directly to mine. I froze. She froze too. For 1 second, neither of us moved. She looked at me, then at my boyfriend, then back at me. Something changed in her expression. Not anger, not surprise, something quieter, something that made the air around me feel suddenly cold. I started to stand. Hey. She didn't respond. She walked to the counter. Hi, she said to the employee. I'm here for the Johnson order. Her voice sounded perfectly normal. The employee disappeared into the back. My sister stood there waiting. She didn't look at me again. I wanted to get up. I wanted to follow her. I wanted to explain. But explain what? That I'd taken our mother's card? That I'd moved $120,000? That there was a reason? That I wasn't stealing it for myself? None of those sentences sounded sane. The employee returned, carrying a white cake box with a red ribbon. My sister paid. She picked it up. Then she turned toward the door. She walked right past me. She didn't say a word. The bell above the door jingled, and she was gone. My boyfriend looked at me. That was your sister, right? I nodded. Yeah. Why didn't she say hi? I stared through the glass at her, walking away. I don't know. But I did know, at least partly. She had seen me, and she'd seen the guy sitting with me. She'd seen the way I looked. She'd probably noticed something was wrong. My phone buzzed again. This time, I looked. There was a message from my sister. Just 4 words. We need to talk. I locked the screen. My boyfriend noticed. Everything okay? No. The word slipped out before I could stop it. He leaned forward. What happened? I looked at him. For a moment, I thought about telling him everything. Every single thing. Instead, I said, I just need to go home. He nodded. He didn't ask why. The drive back was quiet. Snow had started falling lightly, covering the edges of the road. I watched it through the passenger window. My phone stayed in my lap. No more calls. No messages from Mom. Nothing from my sister. That silence felt deliberate. When we pulled up outside my house, I didn't immediately get out. My boyfriend turned toward me. "Do you want me to come inside?" "No." "You sure?" "Yeah." He reached over and squeezed my hand. "If you need me, call." I nodded. Then I got out. I stood on the sidewalk for a few seconds. The house looked exactly the way it had that morning. Christmas lights, wreath on the door, warm yellow light coming through the windows. Everything looked safe, normal, like nothing had happened. I opened the front door. The house was completely silent. No music, no voices from the kitchen, no sound of dishes. I took one step inside, then another, and that's when I realized the entire family was sitting in the living room, waiting for me. My mother was in the middle. My sister was beside her. And sitting on the coffee table, directly between them, was the piece of paper I had been praying they would never see. My mother looked up at me. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't even look angry. She just said my name. And in that moment, I knew the $120,000 wasn't even the worst thing they'd discovered. My mother looked up at me. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't even look angry. She just said my name. And in that moment, I knew the $120,000 wasn't even the worst thing they'd discovered. "Come sit down." I couldn't move. My eyes stayed fixed on the coffee table. The piece of paper was folded once, but I could still see the number printed across the top. My name. Underneath it, a date, and beneath that, something I hadn't expected to see there. My sister shifted in her seat. She looked exhausted. Not angry. Exhausted. That scared me. "Mom?" I said. She pointed toward the empty chair across from her. "Sit." I slowly walked over. My legs felt strangely disconnected from the rest of my body. I sat down. Nobody spoke. The Christmas tree lights blinked behind them, throwing little reflections across the living room window. It was such a normal Christmas scene that I almost laughed. There were presents underneath the tree. A bowl of candy on the side table. My father's old recliner in the corner. And 4 people sitting in silence like we'd just walked into a courtroom. My mother picked up the paper. "Do you know what this is?" I swallowed. "Yes." My sister looked at me. "So you knew." "I knew about it." My mother folded the paper again. "How long?" I didn't answer. "How long have you known about this?" "A while." My father's voice came from the other side of the room. "That's not an answer." I looked at him. He hadn't said a word since I'd walked in. Now I noticed something I hadn't noticed before. His hands were shaking. Just slightly. But they were. "I found out a few months ago," I said. My mother's face changed. "A few months?" I nodded. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I knew what would happen. Because I knew nobody would believe me. Because the moment I told them, everything would become real." Instead, I said, "I was trying to figure it out." My sister let out a quiet laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh. "Figure it out?" She leaned forward. "You've had months." "I know. You've had months to tell us." "I know. And instead, you took Mom's card." I didn't take it for myself. My mother closed her eyes. For the first time since I'd walked through the door, she looked genuinely hurt. "I didn't say you did." "But you think I did." I don't know what to think. That sentence hit harder than yelling would've. I looked down at my hands. My fingers were trembling. I had to make the payment. My father stood up. "Why?" I looked at him. He stared back. "Why would you move $120,000 without telling anyone?" "I couldn't tell you." "Why?" "Because you would have stopped me." My sister shook her head. "Of course we would have stopped you. You don't understand." "Then explain it." "I can't." She stared at me. "That's the problem." Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then my mother reached for the paper again. "You need to understand something." Her voice was quieter now. "The bank called me this morning." "I know. They told me someone used my card for a payment of $120,000. "I know." They asked whether I authorized it. I couldn't look at her. I said no. My chest tightened. My mother continued. They asked me whether I knew who had access to my card. I finally looked up. What did you say? She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, I said I did. My stomach dropped. Mom. But I didn't give them your name. I stared at her. Why? She looked at me for a long moment. Because I wanted to hear the truth from you first. My eyes burned. I was going to tell you. When? I don't know. Tomorrow? I don't know. Next week? I don't know. My voice broke. I just needed time. My mother leaned back. For what? I couldn't answer. My sister stood up. Okay. Everyone looked at her. She walked toward the kitchen. I can't do this. Do what? I asked. She turned around. Watch you lie to Mom again. I'm not lying. You are. I'm not. You still haven't told them why you made the payment. Silence. My sister stared at me. Then she said something that made my entire body go cold. Tell them what the money was for. I looked at her. She knew. Not everything, but enough. My mother turned toward my sister. What does that mean? My sister didn't answer. I did. It wasn't for me. My father frowned. Then who was it for? I looked toward the Christmas tree. There was a photograph sitting on the mantel above it. A picture of our family from years ago. My mother, my father, my sister, me. We were all smiling. None of us knew what was coming. I can't say. My father slammed his hand against the arm of the chair. Enough. I flinched. I've been sitting here all morning trying to understand what you've done, he said. And every time you speak, you give us another piece of the puzzle and refuse to show us the whole picture. I know. No, I don't think you do. He pointed toward the paper. That's our money. I know. That's your mother's money. I know. You had no right. I know. Then why? I looked at him. Because there was one thing I hadn't told them. Something I'd been carrying alone. Something I'd promised myself I would never say out loud. I needed to buy something. My sister's face went pale. My mother frowned. What? I couldn't answer. My sister whispered, Don't. I looked at her. She shook her head. Don't tell them yet. My father stared between us. What aren't you two telling us? We're not hiding anything, my sister said. You just told her not to tell us something. I said don't tell them yet. My mother stood up. Why? My sister looked at me. I could see the question in her eyes. Are you really going to do this? I didn't know. I didn't even know if I could. Then my mother walked toward me. She stopped directly in front of me. Look at me. I did. I am your mother. Her voice cracked. You don't have to protect me from the truth. I looked down. I wasn't protecting you. Then what were you doing? I whispered, protecting you from what happens if I fail. My mother froze. My father looked at her. My sister covered her mouth. Nobody moved. What does that mean? Mom asked. I couldn't speak. She sat down beside me. Sweetheart. I hadn't heard her call me that in that tone since I was a little girl. You are frightening me. That broke something inside me. I started crying. Not loudly. I just couldn't stop the tears. I didn't know what else to do. My mother reached for my hand. I pulled away. She stopped. I thought if I could fix it before Christmas, nobody would ever have to know. Fix what? I shook my head. Please? Fix what? I can't. My father walked toward the window. For several seconds, he stood there with his back to us. Then he said, Is this about the house? I looked up. No. Your job? No. Did somebody threaten you? No. Are you in trouble? No. Did you borrow money from someone? No. He turned around. Then what? I stared at him. My mouth opened. Nothing came out. Then my sister spoke. She's trying to save somebody. My father looked at her. Who? My sister looked at me. I knew exactly what she wanted me to say. But I couldn't. My mother suddenly stood. Who? I looked at her. I'm sorry. Who? I'm sorry, Mom. Who are you trying to save? I wiped my face. I can't tell you. My mother stared at me. Then she walked away. She went into the kitchen. I heard a cabinet open, then close. My sister sat down beside me. She lowered her voice. You shouldn't have done this. I know. You should have told me before you took the card. I couldn't. You trusted me enough to tell me everything else. I looked at her. Not everything. She looked away. Apparently. I almost smiled. It would have been the wrong time, but for 1 second, it felt like we were sisters again. Then my phone buzzed. I pulled it out. One notification. Unknown number. I stared at it. My sister noticed. Who is that? I don't know. I opened the message. There were only 6 words. They know you made the payment. My blood went cold. I looked at my sister. What? She saw my face. What happened? I handed her the phone. She read the message. Her expression changed immediately. Who sent this? I don't know. Did you give anyone your number? No. Are you sure? Yes. She looked toward the kitchen. Does Mom know about this? No. Don't tell her. I looked at her. Why? Because we don't know who sent it. I stared at the screen. Another message appeared. This one was longer. You were never supposed to make the payment yourself. My hands went numb. My sister read it over my shoulder. She whispered, Oh my God. I typed back, Who is this? The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. I waited. Nothing. I looked at my sister. Did you know? Know what? That somebody expected me to make this payment. No. You're lying. I'm not. Then why aren't you surprised? She looked at me. I am surprised. No, you're scared. She didn't answer. I knew my sister well enough to recognize that silence. Tell me. She shook her head. Not here. Why? Because Dad is in the room. So? She looked toward the hallway. Then she whispered, Because Dad doesn't know. My stomach tightened. Know what? She stood up. Come upstairs. I followed her. We walked quietly past our parents. My mother was standing at the kitchen counter with her back to us. My father was still by the window. Neither of them said anything. We went upstairs. My sister closed the bedroom door behind us. What is going on? She sat on the edge of the bed. I don't know how much you're supposed to know. What does that mean? She looked at the floor. Do you remember last summer? Which part? The night Mom and Dad were fighting. I frowned. Yeah. You thought it was about money. It was about money. No. I stared at her. What was it about? She hesitated. Mom found something. What? I don't know. You're lying again. I don't know exactly what she found. Then what do you know? She looked up. Mom was scared. I sat down across from her. Scared of what? She shook her head. I can't. Why? Because if I'm wrong, I could destroy this family. I stared at her. So you let me destroy it instead. She flinched. I didn't know you were going to take the money. Who did you think was going to? She didn't answer. I stood. Who? She looked at me. Someone else. The room went silent. What does that mean? My sister rubbed her hands together. I think Mom has been preparing for something for a long time. Preparing for what? I don't know. Then why did you tell me not to tell them what the payment was for? Because I don't know if the person you're trying to help is actually the person who needs help. I stared at her. What? She stood up. There's something you need to understand. Her voice was barely above a whisper. The money you paid this morning. She stopped. What about it? It wasn't supposed to go to the account you sent it to. My heart stopped. What? She reached for my phone. I handed it to her. She looked at the payment confirmation. Then she looked at me. You sent it here? Yes. She stared at the screen. Then you made a mistake. I felt dizzy. What kind of mistake? She looked toward the closed bedroom door. Then, back at me. The account you paid isn't the account we were told to use. I couldn't breathe. Who told you? She didn't answer. Who told you? My sister's eyes filled with tears. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message. I looked down. This time, there was no number. Just a blocked sender. And one sentence. Your sister was never supposed to tell you. I looked up. My sister was staring at the phone. Neither of us spoke. Then we heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Slow. Heavy. Someone stopped outside the bedroom door. My sister's face went completely white. The handle began to turn. My sister grabbed my wrist. Don't say anything. The door opened. My father stood there. He looked from my sister to me, then down at the phone in my hand. For a second, nobody spoke. Then he said, "Your mother wants both of you downstairs." My sister released my wrist. Why? Dad's expression didn't change. Because it's time. I felt my stomach drop. Time for what? He looked directly at me. To stop pretending this was ever about the money. I couldn't move. My sister whispered, "Dad?" He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. Then he looked at my phone. "Did you get another message?" I stared at him. "How did you know?" He didn't answer. My sister looked at him. "You knew?" He nodded once. My chest tightened. "You knew someone was messaging me?" "Yes." "Who?" He took a breath. "Come downstairs." "No." He looked at me. I surprised myself by how steady my voice sounded. "I'm done following everyone around while they tell me they can't explain anything." Dad stared at me for several seconds. Then he sat on the edge of the bed. "You're right." Those were not the words I expected. He rubbed his hands together. "Your mother and I should have told you months ago." "About what?" He looked at my sister. She gave him a small nod. Dad finally said, "About me." I frowned. "What about you?" He looked down. "The payment wasn't supposed to come from your mother's account." "I know." "No, you don't." He looked at me. "I was the one who was supposed to make it." The room went silent. My sister closed her eyes. I stared at him. "You?" He nodded. "Why?" "Because I was the person who owed it." I couldn't understand. "Owed who?" Dad stood. "Come downstairs." This time, I followed him. My sister came behind me. When we reached the living room, Mom was standing beside the Christmas tree. She looked at Dad. He nodded. She looked at me. "I think you deserve the whole story." I sat down. My sister sat beside me. Dad remained standing. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. "About 2 years ago," he began, "I found out that someone had been using my identity." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, someone had opened accounts under my name. They had been moving money through them. At first I thought it was fraud. Then I realized there was something much worse." Mom stepped closer. "They were using Dad's company." My stomach tightened. "What company?" "The consulting business." I knew it. My father had owned the business for years. It wasn't huge, but it supported our family. "What happened?" Dad swallowed. "I discovered that one of my business partners had been stealing money." "How much?" "Enough?" "That's not an answer." He looked at me. "More than $1 million." I felt my mouth fall open. My sister whispered, "That's what Mom found last summer." Dad nodded. The record showed that some of the transfers were connected to accounts that appeared to belong to me. "But they didn't." "No." "Then why didn't you go to the police?" Dad looked away. "Because by the time I understood what was happening, the paperwork made it look like I was involved." I stared at him. "So you were being investigated?" "Not officially. Yet." He nodded. "Yet." Mom sat beside me. "We hired an attorney." "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because we were afraid." I looked at her. "Afraid of what?" "Of losing everything." Dad continued. "We were trying to resolve it quietly. The person responsible agreed to return some of the money in exchange for a settlement." "And that's the $120,000? Dad nodded. "Yes." I looked at my sister. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "But why did I know about it?" My sister finally spoke. "Because I found the documents." "When?" "Last summer." "And you never told me?" "You found them yourself." I shook my head. "No, I didn't." She looked confused. Then how did you know about the payment? I looked at Mom. She answered, because I told you. I stared at her. When? 3 weeks ago. I searched my memory. 3 weeks ago. The conversation came back. Mom had been sitting at the kitchen table. She'd been crying. She told me Dad had made a mistake. She told me everything might be taken from us. She never gave me the whole story. She only said there was a deadline. A payment, $120,000. And if it wasn't made, things would get much worse. I had thought she was talking about some private debt. I had promised myself I'd help. But then I discovered the rest. I looked at her. You told me you didn't have the money. I didn't. But you did. No. I frowned. Then where was the money? Mom's eyes filled with tears. That was the problem. Dad stepped closer. The money existed. He pointed toward the paper on the table. But it wasn't ours. I stared at him. What? The $120,000 was money that had been frozen as part of the investigation. My stomach dropped. Then, why was Mom's card connected to it? It wasn't. I looked at the payment confirmation on my phone. Then how did the payment go through? Dad looked at me. Because the card wasn't used to pay the debt. I felt cold. What? My sister spoke quietly. The payment was a purchase. I looked at her. A purchase of what? She shook her head. Dad answered. Evidence. I stared at him. What? He sat down. The person who stole the money had something we needed. Financial records, account information, copies of communications. He looked exhausted. We were offered the chance to buy the evidence from a private source. For $120,000? Yes. And you were going to pay it? Yes. Why didn't you? Dad looked at Mom. Because the money was intercepted. I didn't understand. What does that mean? Mom said, the money we'd set aside disappeared. I stared at her. And then you told me about the deadline. She nodded. I was desperate. So I stole your card. Her eyes closed. Yes. And you knew? I suspected. But you let me do it. No. Her voice cracked. I didn't know you were going to. I remembered the bank calls. The calm voice. The way she had simply asked where I was. You knew the moment the bank called. Yes. And you didn't tell me. I wanted to know why. I stared at her. Why? Because I thought you had taken the money for yourself. I flinched. I would never. I know that now. She reached for my hand. I let her take it. I know. I looked at Dad. What about the messages? His expression changed. The person who had the evidence. Who? Our former partner. I felt a chill. He's been contacting me? Yes. Why? Because he thought you were working with us. I shook my head. I wasn't. I know. He looked at the phone. But he didn't. I looked at the blocked message again. Your sister was never supposed to tell you. Suddenly, something clicked. I turned toward my sister. You knew he was contacting people. She nodded. How? Because he contacted me first. When? 2 weeks ago. My voice rose. And you didn't tell me? I was trying to protect you. Everybody keeps saying that. I stood up. Everybody keeps protecting me by lying to me. My sister started crying. I was scared. So was I. I know. No, you don't. She looked at me. I took Mom's card because I thought I was saving Dad. Dad looked down. My voice broke. I thought if I paid the money, whatever was happening would stop. Mom squeezed my hand. And instead, Dad said quietly, you accidentally sent the money to the wrong account. I froze. What? He nodded. The account you paid belongs to the private investigator we hired. I stared at him. But my sister said it was wrong. It was wrong. Dad took out his phone. The account number changed yesterday. My mouth went dry. Yesterday? Yes. Why? Because the investigator discovered the original account had been compromised. I looked at the payment confirmation. So where did my $120,000 go? Dad didn't answer immediately. Mom looked at him. Tell her. He finally said it. The money went to the account of the person who was supposed to receive the evidence. My heart stopped. What? Dad nodded. We've been trying to get the bank to freeze it. I stared at him. Did they? Yes. I almost collapsed into the chair. So the money isn't gone? No? I covered my face. For the first time all day, I felt like I could breathe. Then my father said, "But there's another problem." I lowered my hands. What? The payment wasn't anonymous. I looked at him. What does that mean? The transaction is in your mother's name. My heart sank. Dad continued. And because you used her card, investigators will initially believe she authorized it. Mom went completely still. So I'm the one who looks guilty. Dad nodded. And that's why we were waiting for you. I stared at my mother. I'm sorry. She shook her head. No. But, no. She pulled me into a hug. I broke down immediately. I'm so sorry. She held me tightly. I know. I thought I was helping. I know. I didn't know. I know. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then my sister joined us. The three of us stood there crying beside the Christmas tree. Dad turned away. I think he was crying too. Eventually, we separated. I wiped my face. What happens now? Dad looked at the clock. We call the attorney. And the bank? Already done. And the police? He hesitated. The attorney will handle that. I nodded. There was still one thing bothering me. The messages. Dad looked at my phone. We need to save them. I handed it to him. He read the messages carefully. Then he looked at me. There's something here you haven't noticed. What? He pointed to the first message. They know you made the payment. Then the second. You were never supposed to make the payment yourself. Then the last one. Your sister was never supposed to tell you. Dad looked at my sister. Did you tell anyone she was going to make the payment? No. Did you tell him she knew about the evidence? No. Dad looked at me. Then someone else knew. I felt the room go cold again. Who? Nobody answered. My mother slowly looked toward the hallway. I followed her gaze. Then she whispered, "The only person outside this family who knew everything." She stopped. Dad finished the sentence. Was our attorney. Nobody moved. I looked at my sister. She looked terrified. My phone buzzed. All four of us looked down. A new message had appeared. This time, it wasn't blocked. It was from a number I recognized. Our attorney's office. My heart started pounding. I opened it. There was only one sentence. Do not speak to anyone until I get there. I looked at my father. He read the message. Then his phone rang. He answered. Hello? He listened. His face slowly changed. What? Mom stood. What is it? Dad pulled the phone away from his ear. He looked at all of us. The attorney says the $120,000 was never supposed to be paid. I stared at him. What? He says the settlement was canceled yesterday. My stomach dropped. Then why did he let us believe it was still happening? Dad looked toward the Christmas tree. I don't know. The house suddenly felt much smaller. The Christmas lights continued blinking. Red, green, red, green. Like nothing had changed. But everything had. I looked down at the payment confirmation one last time. Then I understood why my sister had looked so terrified when she saw the account. The money hadn't been stolen. It hadn't been lost. It hadn't even been spent. It had gone exactly where someone wanted it to go. And whoever had arranged that payment had known from the beginning that I would be the one holding my mother's card when it happened. For months, I thought I'd been the person trying to save my family. Standing there on Christmas morning, surrounded by the people I loved, I finally understood the truth. I hadn't been the one pulling the strings. I had been the easiest person to use.